We continue to work with law enforcement agencies. We continue to work with the SIU, the NPA, as well as with the Hawks, and we receive their full support in bringing those that are guilty of malfeasance to book. And I'm very encouraged by some of the efforts that we've seen. You will have noticed at the end of last year, 2 former Eskom executives were arrested, and we are continuing with those efforts to bring people who are guilty of criminal offences to book, bearing in mind that we cannot tar everybody with the same brush. We have to respect the rule of law, and also bearing in mind that Eskom itself does not have powers of arrest. We are, however, at the same time as working with the law enforcement authorities, we are pursuing civil claims to recover monies from entities and individuals who have benefited from contracts entered into unlawfully with Eskom in the past. So the message is clear. There is no room for corruption at Eskom, and we will continue to drive our values as a lever to build a foundation on which we can run an ethical organization.
Well, my colleague Arabile Gumede was at Megawatt Park, and he was in conversation with Eskom CEO Ruyter. Let's take a look.
Now, the state of South Africa's electricity deficiencies have certainly been highlighted, and this has certainly been a discussion point and an interview, of course, where we found out just where Eskom sits. But how far are we with other matters? Let's chat to the CEO, Mr. De Ruyter, who does join us as well. Mr. De Ruyter, thank you so much for the time. You've highlighted and really shown that there are still a whole lot of inefficiencies, a whole host of problems. 18 months at the very least is how long we'll have load shedding for. Can I confirm that?
I think there will be a period of an increased probability of load shedding as we implement our maintenance recovery campaign. It is very important for us to restore our power plants to a condition of predictability and reliability. And in order to achieve that, we have to take units offline, repair them properly and thoroughly, and after that we'll bring Eskom back to being a reliable and sustainable supplier of electricity.
Yeah. So in terms of timeframes, you don't have any of those? For example, how long will we continually have load shedding for example, and how long will the maintenance take as well?
That planning process is still in place, and it also depends to what extent we can manage the demand side, and this is where the South African consumer can play a very meaningful role in managing the consumption of electricity, particularly during peak hours.
Are you finding that the job in itself will entail, in terms of the maintenance, in terms of load shedding as well, a high amount of funding? And if so, where that comes from and how we will then begin to fund that?
At this stage, we intend to fund this maintenance campaign from internal resources. We are redeploying capital from elsewhere. We are reprioritizing some of our expenditure. And of course, to the extent that we are successful in achieving our objectives of restoring the integrity of our coal-fired power stations, we will scale down on the consumption of diesel. And as you've heard, we've burnt 6 billion rands worth of diesel. So that's a very big prize for us to chase.
Have you found that perhaps you need to create some sort of predictability, as you say, yes, with regards to the grid and how much, with regards to load shedding South Africans get? Are you not perhaps looking at a way of just sustainably saying, South Africa, this is how it's going to look, and when that communication can perhaps come through for South Africans to understand?
So this is exactly what we're working towards, and you can expect further announcements in due course, but we do not prematurely wish to communicate when we haven't done all the work, both from a supply perspective as well as from a demand perspective. So we need to firm up on those estimates, and once that is ready, we'll be able to then communicate properly and give guidance to the South African public.
Yeah. You can imagine the impatience then, of course, of the South African public. Any sort of time frame with regards to that communication?
The impossible we do by tomorrow, miracles take a little longer.
Yeah. Okay. So with regards to then some infighting with regards to people like the ANC and wanting to really be a part of the conversation, how does that play into your discussions, your plans, your hopes, and really just how you operate as well from here on?
Fortunately, I'm a businessman, not a politician, so I intend to run Eskom as a business, be data-driven, look at the facts, look at the financial realities of where we are, and present those facts to the shareholder, who ultimately then has to make the decision.
We've noted in the past that giving people the ability to actually supply the grid itself is a very viable solution. Why are we not there yet?
That's exactly part of the solution, in order to give us the headroom and minimize the possibility of load shedding, so that we can buy in electricity from those with excess capacity. Those discussions will be commencing very shortly, and then we will be able to bring that into our calculations of what will be available to reduce the risk of load shedding.
You've made note that you don't look to get any bailouts from government. Is that a sustainable path? And how then do you reorganize perhaps your finances to ensure that that certainly doesn't happen in future?
Look, the government's already committed to making available 250 billion rand over a period of 10 years to Eskom. For us to go back and ask for more at this stage, before we've optimized, addressed our own cost base, is not something that I'm prepared to do. We first need to look internally, optimize that, and if there is then a shortfall, then we can have the discussion with government from a position where we can honestly say that we are running a good business.
Again, you're saying that conversation with government would only happen once you've assimilated exactly how you're going to move forward from here on, as you're doing right now.
That's correct.
All right. So very finally, we're getting to a stage where it is hurting not just Eskom, not just consumers, but international investment as well. How are you going to ensure that the investment community feels safe and understanding that you are the right man for the job?
Well, that's exactly why we need to restore trust, as I said in my earlier remarks. We need to restore trust that we will deliver what we've set out to do, and that is why this maintenance program is so critical. It is the very foundation of the Eskom turnaround, is that we can go to international investors and say, for a period, we will have some increased possibility of load shedding, but once that is done, you can rely, you can bank on Eskom as an electricity supplier.
Well, the public will certainly be waiting. Thank you so much for the time, Mr. Ruyter. Really, really appreciate it. They're the Eskom CEO there.